Hola. Buenos días. Mi nombre es Timoteo. Good morning. I'm Tim, and I serve gratefully as your minister. Bienvenidos a la Iglesia Unitarian Universalista de Fresno. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, California. Welcome to everyone on our virtual campus. A big wave to the virtual campus. Welcome to everyone on our Alluvial Ave church campus. We are one congregation in many places. If you are on our virtual campus, now is the perfect time to share this live stream with your Facebook or YouTube friends and followers. Now, you may, if you're on Alluvial Ave, hear the sound of something that we've not heard in the sanctuary since March 2020. And that is the sound of children. Woo! Today is the first time that our kids have been with us for the beginning of the service. They're going to be doing that a couple times each month going forward. But it is wonderful to have the energy, the racing. It's going to be great. Because the children are with us right now, I'm not going to say anything specifically about Buffalo, but I do want to say that we will be speaking about and acknowledging that tragedy a little later in today's service, but it is important to make mention of that in this moment. We acknowledge that our Alluvial Avenue Church campus sits within the traditional homelands of the Yokuts and who are the original and ongoing stewards of this land. As Unitarian Universalists, we welcome you no matter your race, cultural origin, age, spiritual background, or religious beliefs. We welcome you no matter your disabilities, the amount of money that's in your bank account, your level of education, or your neurodiversity. You are welcome with or without documentation. You are welcome if you are lesbian, gay, bi, trans, non-binary, gender fluid, or questioning. Todos son bienvenidos aquí. If you are on our virtual campus and you wish to share a personal joy, sorrow, concern, or gratitude, both in the chat box but also spoken here from the pulpit, now is your time to just type that in the chat box so that our ushers and greeters can write those down, and then they'll bring them to me so I can include them in a little bit later in the service. But if you don't put them in the chat box now, we won't have time to write them down and run them up to the chancel here. Today, after our service, is our congregational meeting on both our Alluvial Ave campus and our virtual campus. We hope that you will be here in Alluvial Ave or in the Zoom room for that annual meeting. We will be approving our new Board of Trustees. We will be approving our next fiscal year budget and also, hopefully, approving the brand new 8th principle of this congregation. Woo, yes, now in the chat box, in person, or in the silence of your heart, let's take a moment to greet one another. Now, of course, it's the adults who aren't quieting down, not the kids. So we are going to let the sound of the tingsha carry us to that quiet place within that knows that we are loved. And then the music is going to kind of rock the house. So if anybody wants to get up and dance, kids, adults, elders, anyone in between, this, Hannah, is definitely a dancing kind of prelude. So a moment of silence, then let's rock and roll.
If I'd known what I know today, 10 years ago, I wonder where I'd be on my journey now. But I'm here to tell you, I know what I'm here to do. I'm here to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. That's right. Well, I woke up early this morning. I was feeling mighty bad, and I searched my heart and I found a reason why. Instead of thinking about where I am, I was thinking about where I've been. Forgot to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. Yeah. Take it, Mike.
Karen and Bernadette, come on up.
Yeah. All right, give it up for Mike on the guitar. Well, I'm here to tell you, when my heart's so heavy about to break in two, one thing every time brings me back my smile. Well, I start to count my blessings. That's all I need to do. And I've got to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. Some days I get weary when I'm tired of keeping on. I look around to see my work is not done. Yeah. Well, I'm here this morning. People, you know what I'm here to do. I'm here to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. I said I'm here to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. I'm here to give thanks for the joy of living my life with you. Yeah. Give yourselves a hand. That was great. So beautiful to see you guys dancing.
Good morning. Buenos dias. Mi nombre es Ida. I'm Ida Jones, and I serve Berkeley as a member of the worship arts team. If you have a candle or a chalice with you at home, please bring it close, as we'll be lighting it soon. I'm excited to light the chalice in honor of the fact that after you to light your chalice or candle at home. Tim, as I light my candle, could you please light the chalice on our Alluvial Ave campus?
Ida, it is a joy and a privilege to light the light of truth and love with you.
Let us rise now in body or spirit and join in singing the song of praise, Turn the World Around.
And as the kids are with us, we're going to add a little bit more movement, so you don't have to do this, but every time you hear the words, turn the world around, if you want, you can spin right around and try not to fall down. So turn the world around, take it away, Stolen Thunder.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? See each other clearly, turn the world around. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? See each other clearly, turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the Spirit, truly of the Spirit. Only can the Spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life. Whoa, so is life. Ah, so is life.
Woo!
Yay!
Let's remain standing as we say together our mission statement. La misión de la Iglesia Unitaria Universalista de Fresno es amar inclusivamente, crecer espiritualmente, servir con gratitud y trabajar por la justicia. The mission of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno is to love inclusively, grow spiritually, serve gratefully, and work for justice. Please be seated. So as Ida told us today during our congregational meeting, we do have an opportunity to vote to have an eighth principle, and I'll be preaching about this later, that will specifically address our commitment to being inclusive, diverse, and anti-racist. Here is longtime church elder Ellis Vance to tell us why he hopes we will vote yes. This is about 3 minutes, and then we're going to have a time for all ages for everybody. So here's Ellis.
Good day. Buenos dias. My name is Alice, and I'm a committed social justice activist and a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. When I first arrived at the UU Church over 20 years ago, I knew I'd found a home when I first heard the words, "Love is the doctrine
So today we're going to have our first time for all ages since March 2020 with the kids with us today. And Eva, where's Eva? Eva, who has been running our Sunday morning program for our kids. When we came back last June, we had exactly 0 children engaged with our church. The families, for the most part, had dropped away. And since Eva and the crew that works each Sunday morning has been creating excitement and building back our program, and you have given us a really firm foundation to continue building upon, we owe you so much gratitude, Eva. Everyone, give it up for Eva. Now, Eva was a wise spiritual teacher through those early days of the pandemic. You were appearing on video on our virtual campus, teaching us so much. One of the things that you've really taught me since we've come back on the campus is the importance of remembering that bodies are part of our spiritual life, and that that's something kids always remind us. Spirituality is embodied and engaged, which is one of the reasons we're doing a lot of movement in this first part of the service. Then we'll quiet down for the second half. So we have one more movement today. We thought that we would do what's called a body prayer, or for those of us who don't like the word prayer, a body meditation. And so the movements are fairly simple. You don't have to do them exactly. In fact, if this morning you don't want to move, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of your stillness, But the movements, if you want, and if we could have the first lyrics come up there, Ian, great. So it's going to be peace within me, and then peace before me, peace to the right of me, and then just pretend you have a tail. Peace behind me, then peace to the left of me, peace above me, peace below me, peace within. And then we're going to do that one more time. So it's peace be with me, and then you push peace before me, peace to the right of me, like a tail, peace behind me, peace to the left of me, peace above me, peace below me, peace within, or any variation thereof. If you wish to rise again in body or spirit to move, feel free, and Hannah and Stolen Thunder will lead us through.
2, 3, 4.
Peace be with me, peace before me, peace to the right of me, peace behind me, peace to the left of me, peace above me, peace below me, peace within, peace be with you, peace before you, peace to the right of you, peace behind you, peace to the left of you, peace above you, peace below you, peace within, peace be with us, peace before us, peace to the right of us, peace behind us, peace to the left of us, peace above us, peace below us, peace within, peace be with us, peace before us, peace to the right of us, peace behind us, peace to the left of us, peace above us, peace below us, peace within, peace within.
So let's sing our kids off as they head off to their Sunday morning spiritual explorations.
2, 3.
Hold you in our love as you go. Your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
Please be seated. Wow, was that awesome having the kids with us again? Oh my gosh. So let's take a nice deep centering breath in and release that breath. Once again, taking a deep centering breath in and release that breath. One more time, a deep centering breath in, breathing in peace. We hold a moment. We breathe out love. As we continue breathing together in this now quieter space, filled with the blessing of our breath and our precious beating hearts, as we breathe together, each at our own pace, each at our own depth, a question emerges for reflection. Where in the last week did you experience peace? One of the ways we find peace as Unitarian Universalists, both personally and as a community, is by acknowledging that our lives, they're not perfect. They're a complex mixture of joys and unbelievable sorrows, gratitudes and concerns. We create space each Sunday in our service for opportunity, if you feel so moved, to share a personal joy, concern, sorrow, or gratitude. On Alluvial Avenue campus, some of us stop at the small table at the entranceway to the church and write that down. Others of us on our virtual campus type it into the chat box. Today we actually just have one coming from Barbara Ullman, all the way in Portland on our virtual campus. Barbara has a joy. She says, we've had over 50 inches of rain in the past year here in Portland. Flowers are blooming, trees and shrubs are blossoming. It's a fine place for me to be, even though I miss you all at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. And Barbara, the great thing is we are truly one congregation in many places, so you are here just as we are there. Today we collectively grieve the deaths and injuries in yet another mass shooting in this country, this time in a Buffalo, New York supermarket. An 18-year-old shooter opened fire in a racially motivated hate crime fueled by white nationalism, killing 10 people and wounding 3 others. This person hunted down black people. 11 of those shot are black people. Another example of the white supremacy culture that permeates our country and devalues and destroys black lives. Let's take just a moment of silence and remember those lost, those grieving. On our virtual campus, if you would like to affirm Black Lives Matter, we invite you to type BLM in the chat box. Even as we grieve, we celebrate all those who took to the streets yesterday in support of Roe v. Wade and against the radical, politically motivated, anti-women, pro-forced pregnancy, pro-forced birth agenda that is taking hostage of this country, even though the majority of Americans are opposed to overturning Roe v. Wade. We remember, too, our beloved church members and friends who are living with health challenges or have compromised mobility or other things that impact their well-being. We lift up Edith H., William H., Laura G., Molly K., Glenda R., Pat M., Al G., Brandon E., and Josephine J. And Josephine is here with us again today. We send our prayer, our healing energy and light to you, Josephine. Today we again celebrate that this is Asian American Pacific Islander Month. We recognize that even as we see the instances of anti-Asian, anti-Pacific Islander hate increasing in this country. We also celebrate that this upcoming Tuesday is the 68th anniversary of the groundbreaking ruling in Brown v. Wade, mixing them up, Brown versus Board of Education. This, of course, is the landmark Supreme Court case in which the justices ruled unanimously that racial segregation of children in public schools was unconstitutional. Brown versus the Board of Education was one of the cornerstones of the civil rights movement and helped establish the precedent that separate but equal education and other services were not, in fact, equal at all. If you would like to honor this Supreme Court decision, type BVB in the chat box. Tuesday is also International Day against homophobia, transphobia, and biphobia. And so for all that's been shared, for everything we hold in the sacred stillness and silence of our own hearts, and for all those who on this day have no one to remember them, no one to speak their names with gentleness or love, we light our candle of community. By our remembering, may we and they be blessed. We light a second candle. This burns for the over 6.23 million citizens of this world who have lost their lives in the ongoing pandemic. We also acknowledge that we are at or have already moved past, depending on which statistics you look at, 1 million deaths of Americans. That is 200,000 more than the citizens and armed forces who lost their lives during the Civil War. And for those who want to imagine this pandemic is over, in January and February, we lost on average 2,000 citizens a day. In 2 months, we lost 125,000 Americans, January and February. And so I note even more the significance of our call to meditation, a meditation on breathing. May we remember there are 1 million Americans who no longer have that ability because of COVID. Let us sing.
When I breathe in, I breathe into peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace.
When I breathe in, I breathe
Peace be with you. Peace before you. Peace to the right of you. Peace behind you. Peace to the left of you. Peace above you. Peace below you. Peace within.
Expects the incredible, receives the impossible, faith that can conquer anything, faith that uproots my problems, faith to know that God can solve them, faith to envision my freedom. I have faith that can conquer anything, faith that can reach the unreachable, faith that can fight the unbeatable, faith that removes the unmovable, faith that stands the invincible, faith that can conquer anything. Oh, faith that can reach the unreachable, faith that can find the unbeatable, faith that removes the immovable, faith that can stand the invincible, faith that can conquer that sees the invincible, faith that expects the incredible, faith that can conquer
From our virtual campus all the way from Brooklyn Heights, New York. So I feel like before the sermon, we've got to add our voices again into the mix. So if you're willing and able, I invite us to rise, body or spirit. Hannah and Stolen Thunder, come and go with me to that land.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land where I'm bound, where I'm bound. Come and go with me to that land. Come and go with me to that land. With me to that land where
Please be seated. Let's give it up for Stolen Thunder, Nicholas. Nicholas on drums. Thank you. Oh my gosh, we're all going to need a nap at the end of this service. We've been dancing and singing and clapping. Here you are, sir. Okay. So, we begin at one of my happy places, Broadway. Broadway musicals. With the great legendary musical theater star, the trumpet-voiced Ethel Merman. So how many of us have ever heard Ethel Merman? Okay, some of us. Young ones who have not, you gotta look at her on YouTube. She's awesome. She was the star of classic musicals of the golden age of Broadway in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Anything Goes, Annie Get Your Gun, Call Me Madam, and Gypsy, among other things. Now I can just imagine a few of you, he's talking about Broadway. I thought this was about racial justice. Bear with me. Ethel Merman was famous for her work ethic. She was, as she would refer to her own self, I am a workhorse. She just threw herself 110% into whatever Broadway show, whatever television program, whatever film she was working on. She was known to be there early. She would stay late. She would work as hard as asked and then continue working. But she was also quirky. She would work and work and work and work and work, but there would come a point when in her mind, it was time to stop working on a show. Whether the composer felt the show was in final form, whether the book writer felt the show was in final form, whether the director felt the show was in final form, whether the producer felt the show was in final form, when Ethel Merman, because she was a star, decided the work was done, she would announce from the stage, "This show is frozen." This show is frozen, which meant there would be no other change, and it was time to open that show. Being frozen might be good for an Ethel Merman musical, but being frozen is not good for a religion. Yeah, let me hear it. Because if a religion is frozen, it means that somewhere somebody decided that this is it. This is everything captured with T, a capital T for truth. And this truth, this understanding, this perspective, this belief, this theology is going to be set from now until the end of time. I suggest to you that any religion that says it is frozen is a dangerous religion. You will hear Unitarian Universalists say many things, but you will never hear us say that this is a frozen religion. We say that we are a living tradition. Now, I know many of you have heard me talk about this, a living tradition. 2 words, it's really important, and let's look at the tradition part first. Unitarian Universalism just didn't come out because somebody decided to invent a religion that said, oh, let's have a religion where we love everybody and affirm everybody. And despite some popular misconceptions, Unitarian Universalism wasn't invented in the 60s when some Unitarian Universalists were smoking pot and, let's love everybody. Now, I do know that there were, as I've said, Unitarian Universalists smoking pot in the 60s, but Unitarian I'm not going to say just pointed at herself, but Unitarian Universalists existed long before then. We trace our roots back over 2,000 years, back to ancient Judaism, and then to that really great, awesome, good Jewish boy named Jesus of Nazareth, who didn't come to create a new religion. He just tried to maybe teach people how to love a bit more inclusively and lovingly, and got knocked off for that. But we trace our roots Jesus, we trace our roots all the way, and we're going to get to some more of those changes in a minute, but we are a tradition rooted in history. But we say we are a living tradition, which means it is alive, it is changing, it is responding to the calls of the moment, the calls of the time. It isn't frozen, it is living. And it is living because it is made up of living people who have questions, who are learning more about themselves, who are learning more about the culture that they live in. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe religion must grow, deepen, and change. A religion that remains frozen, a religion that remains unchanging, is a religion that is more of an artifact than a spirituality that is authentic for this time and place. Yeah, that's good. I want to share with you briefly 3 different times that Unitarian Universalism had the choice to remain frozen or to grow, deepen, and change. We ultimately did make the choice to live authentically into the moment, to continue being a living tradition, but only with great struggle and only with some mistakes. The first example was here in this country in the 1830s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Out of what was a rather stodgy Unitarianism that was absolutely Bible-based, Jesus-centered, although Jesus was not a divine being, Jesus was a human being who came to teach us how to love and also raise a little ruckus by demanding for justice, but we were Bible-based. If you were in a Unitarian church in the 1840s, I would be preaching from the Bible. But then these amazing religious revolutionaries, and you've heard me talk about them before, the transcendentalists, people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, Emily Dickinson, so many others. They said, it's fine to have those Bible stories. It's fine to have Jesus. He's a good dude. But there's so much more. First of all, you don't need old stories to have a relationship with the divine. You have your bodies, you have your minds, you have your senses. You can step outside right now in Fresno, feel the warmth of this summer day. You can look at the green of the trees. You can look at those flowers that are still blooming. It is a natural, beautiful world, and God, the divine, is alive in the natural world. You can perceive it with your senses. You don't need me to tell you that. You don't need a book to tell you that. You don't need Jesus to reveal that to you. You can have a personal one-on-one relationship with the divine. Mysticism, a natural mysticism. Well, let me tell you, this was spiritual religious TNT. It exploded Unitarianism. And the powers that be tried to crush it, to silence it, to just make it go away because it threatened the norm. But luckily, transcendentalists inspired other people and said, this religion, Unitarianism, must grow, deepen, or change. And so it did. It didn't take away the Jesus story, but it made room for more than the Jesus story. It made room for this natural mysticism. It made room for the study of other world religions. And it said you can find meaning in many different ways, but only when there was conflict. The second time that I'm going to share when this religion tried to stay frozen and was challenged to grow, deepen, or change happened in the 1970s into the early 80s. And some of you here were Unitarian or Universalists at that time. And this was a challenge that came from feminism. The Unitarians and the Universalists were 2 separate denominations that merged in 1961 to become the Unitarian Universalist Association. When they joined together, and you've heard me speak about this, they created a statement of shared purpose and principles to define what Unitarian Universalism would be for the 60s and beyond. And that statement of principles was ghastly, it was patriarchal, and it was devoid of vibrant spirituality. The women of Unitarian Universalism were unhappy with the sexist, lifeless language, and they became catalysts for change, a change that took 23 years to take place. And it took 23 years because there was significant opposition, mostly from male ministers and male lay leaders who liked that the denomination felt like an old boys club, a white old boys club, and a white straight old boys club. There was a battle to whether we were going to remain frozen or whether Unitarian Universalism was going to grow, deepen, or change. Warren R. Ross remembers and writes, much of the credit for starting the long and meandering path that led to the adoption of the reformulated 7 principles, and we're going to get to those in a minute, that we have today, must go to Unitarian Universalist women. Over many years, women, although not women alone, had been growing unhappy with this blatantly sexist language of the original principles, including a reference to the dignity of man. You may hiss that if you want. There you go. This was the 1970s, years when the U.S. women's movement was gathering momentum, though, and I'm so embarrassed about this, mentions of brotherhood and fellowship survived well into the 1980s in the language of Unitarian Universalism. You may hiss that as well if you want. Thank you. And so it was the women who pushed for a new statement of principles and said we need language that was inspiring and spiritually rich and not sterile and dry. So in 1977, the Women's UU Federation, Unitarian Universalist Federation, challenged the denomination to create new principles. They drafted a new version to present to congregations across the country. There was debate, there was more debate, and even more debate. And the question was asked, who would the Unitarian Universalists declare themselves to be for the future? In 1984, 7 new principles were adopted, thanks to the feminists who called us to grow, deepen, and change. Let's give it up for those powerful women. The third, and I'll be super quick, but it's important. This one also started to brew in the 1970s when some Unitarian Universalists tried to center the voices and experiences of the LGBTQ community within Unitarian Universalism. Some people began to use the language of inclusion for the LGBTQ community. There was fierce pushback from many Unitarian Universalists and many Unitarian Universalist congregations who said they wanted there to be traditional family values within Unitarian Universalism. Others said, yes, you can hiss there, that's okay. Others said, we affirm the LGBTQ community, but they didn't really do a good job about it, doing that because they didn't really understand who the LGBTQ community was, and they didn't get the time to actually learn who they were. They said they were welcoming, and they were good-intentioned straight folks but they sometimes acted as if LGBT people were prizes to be displayed. Oh, we have a gay couple in our congregation, how wonderful. Or they were exotics to be displayed. Truthfully, many LGBTQ people did not feel welcome in our congregations, and this intensified in the early 80s as the AIDS crisis exploded. Knowing this was not the denomination we wanted to be, in 1987, the Unitarian Universalist Association established a Common Vision Planning Committee. It was a diverse group of clergy and laity from around North America that was tasked with collecting information about how to welcome and accept the LGBTQ community. The UUA history recounts that they learned that the lived experience of LGBTQ people in Unitarian Universalist congregations spoke a painful truth. There were many negative attitudes, deep prejudices, and profound ignorance about LGBTQ people. And this was resulting in the exclusion of that community from our Unitarian Universalist congregations. This troubled many people who were committed to creating a truly inclusive faith tradition, and so a program was created called the Welcoming Congregation Program. It was a set of steps, a set of learnings, a set of workshops and activities, a set of standards that had to be met by mostly straight congregations so that they could truly say they were welcoming of LGBTQ people. For the most part, it worked, and because of that program, I, as a gay man, can serve this mostly straight congregation, and it is not a big deal. Now, the reason that these three major moments of change allowed us to end up on the right side of history and not the wrong side, and we could have ended up on the wrong side, is because Unitarian Universalism is, as I said, a living tradition. It's alive, it changes, and with struggle, it always grows, deepens, and changed. And that's because we don't have a creed, we have a covenant. And I know you've heard me talk on this, but just in case you haven't, a creed is a set of beliefs, usually that somebody else in the past figured out was true, and you now in the present have to sign on and say, okay, that's a set of beliefs I either can sign on to or I can pretend to sign on to, but it is about the way you're supposed to think to be part of a congregation, to be part of a faith tradition. We do not have a creed. We say we are a covenantal community. A covenant is a set of promises or aspirations that we make to each other, not about how we're going to think, but about how we want to be in relationship with each other, how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to treat those beyond the walls of this church, how we're going to treat the world. So we do not put our focus on trying to make everyone think the same way. Quite frankly, that would be utterly boring. We focus on inviting everyone to be in right relationship with one another and the world. As we often say, we need not think alike to love alike. And our focus is on the love. That's the covenant. So let's join together. Yeah. So let's join together our voices to remind each other of the covenant that was created by our 7 shared principles, a statement that was shaped in 1984 when feminists forced the denomination to grow, deepen, and change with a new, non-sexist, spiritually rich covenant. If you wish, you may join in. The 7 principles and purposes of Unitarian Universalism. We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large, the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Those are the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. They would appreciate our applause. Those 7 statements are the heart of Unitarian Universalism since 1984. But we are a living tradition, which means something created in 1984 should be able to evolve as needed to address new relevancies not even imagined in 1984. Recently, some Unitarian Universalists, especially Unitarian Universalists who are Black, Indigenous, and people of color, have been asking, are these enough? The answer, for some, is no. 155 Unitarian Universalist congregations in a grassroots effort have adopted a new eighth principle to address our majority white denomination's growing understanding of just how pernicious and deadly white supremacy culture is to Black, Indigenous, and people of color. Before us is the question, do we, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno, California, want to become the 156th congregation out of 2,000 Unitarian Universalist congregations to adopt the eighth principle on a local level and force the issue to be addressed this June at the national level at our 2022 General Assembly in Portland, Oregon? This change in our principles, moving from being frozen to again being a living tradition, is being driven by individual congregations like ours if we so choose. The eighth principle specifically addresses, in no uncertain terms, an explicit call to become a Unitarian Universalist congregation and a Unitarian Universalist denomination that is truly inclusive, diverse, and anti-racist. It calls us to co-create a culture in our congregations that will allow us to be intentionally inclusive, diverse, and anti-racist. Would you say those four words with me, please? Intentionally inclusive, diverse, anti-racist. The draft language for the eighth principle that has emerged from the grassroots level is complex. It will most likely eventually be simplified, but at this stage in its grassroots development, there is complexity, because it seeks to address all the varied ways anti-racist work in our denomination went awry in the past and failed. And folks, we can't afford to fail again. We can't afford to get it wrong again. These words want to set up a structure that will not allow failure once again. The eighth principle reads, we covenant, and there's that promise, that relationship at the heart of our faith. We covenant to affirm, which means I place my heart on it, but we're going to do more than just place our heart on it. We're going to promote it, which means we're going to work for it. So we covenant to affirm and promote journeying. And I said this when I introduced the principle back in March. I love this because it begins with movement. Journeying means we're going from one place toward another, but it is not a meandering journey because our next word is toward. So we are journeying towards something specific. And I love what we are moving towards. We are journeying towards spiritual wholeness. So at the heart of this eighth principle is spirituality, and it's spirituality, and it is about creating wholeness in ourselves, in our congregation, and in our denomination, and in society at large. We're going to find that spiritual wholeness by working. Remember our own mission statement, work for justice. We're going to work to build, which means we have to construct it. It doesn't exist. We don't know what it's going to look like. It will have to be something new. And what are we going to build? We're going to build a diverse. In Unitarian Universalism, diversity is seen as a strength. Sameness is not our goal. So we're going to work to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. Beloved community is a word from Dr. Martin Luther King that connects us back to the civil rights movement of the 60s and all of that amazing work that was done. The beloved community is not focused on individual wants and needs, but looks at the greater good of all. We are going to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community. How? By our actions, which means we're going to do something, not just talk about it. And this is perhaps next the most important part of it, that accountably, which means there are going to be specific and measurable steps that will let us see whether this is being achieved or not. It's not going to be some pie-in-the-sky grandiose aspiration. We're going to be measured by it. We're going to be graded by it. That accountably dismantles racism. That's the anti-racist. But, dear ones, we know that all isms are interconnected, so it will dismantle racism and other oppressions. It's lifting up the intersectionality of sexism, ableism, ageism, imperialism, capitalism, and so much more. We are going to dismantle this where? First, within ourselves. It begins inside each one of us. We make mistakes. I made a big mistake to Jamie, and I heard her pain, and I apologized because I needed to grow. So we first start within ourselves, and then by extension in our institutions, which means this congregation, which means our denomination. So we covenant to affirm and promote. Will you join with me in saying this 8th principle? Journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantles racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. Once we make this declaration, we will begin the difficult and uncertain process of beginning to live into this vision. We don't know how. We don't know what it's going to look like exactly. We don't know what it's going to demand of us. We don't know the ways in the days ahead that we will be called to grow, deepen, and change. But we do know that, in the words of Angela Davis, in a racist society, it is not enough to be non-racist. We must be anti-racist. Think for a moment about yesterday's massacre of black people in Buffalo. A massacre fueled by white nationalist ideology, an ideology that is growing bolder, growing greater in numbers in this country. Think for a moment about what happened in that supermarket. We know that, in the words of a powerful and proud black woman, author, activist, and educator Rachel Cargle, anti-racism work is not self-improvement work for white people. It doesn't end when white people feel better about what they've done. It ends when black people are staying alive and black people have their liberation. Que así sea, bendito sea. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.
Buenos dias. Mi nombre es Ida. As I mentioned before, I serve as a member of the worship arts team. 4 years ago, I moved from Fresno to Elk Grove, California. I've been an active member of the church while I lived in Fresno. I count so many of you as friends and spiritual support during the time I was in physical attendance at the services. I've enjoyed our joint commitment to the 7 principles, the search for spiritual connection, the conversations on campus and during coffee hour, and the contributions, even those such as picking oranges. I've enjoyed the hugs, camaraderie, and all that has connected all of us. Upon moving to a city so many miles away, I was concerned that I would lose that spiritual connection. Although I am devastated by the pandemic that led to its creation, I need and welcome the sustenance that I receive when I attend the service through the virtual campus. I was very pleased that we have become one congregation in many places. Creation of the virtual campus and the conversations through virtual coffee hours, online chats, and other communication have helped me to maintain a connection with the church and congregation that I love. Frankly, though, operating one congregation in many places costs a lot of money. Most of us make a yearly pledge of support and send our checks in the mail or use our bank's electronic funds transfer process. But we also hold an offertory on Sunday morning to remind each other that we are expected to support our church in some way, as our circumstances allow. In this spirit, please join me in our words of offering. If not us, then who? If not open hearts, then what? If not now, then when? If not here, then where? If not generously, then how? If not us, then who? Here's a slide showing how you can make a financial contribution right now on our virtual campus, or if you're on the Alluvial Avenue campus, you can always drop cash, a check, or a diamond necklace into the basket on your way out of the sanctuary. Or you can share generously right this moment by using Cash App. Just send your contribution to $UU Fresno. That's $UU Fresno. May this church continue to be worthy of the many different forms of our gifts. Hola, it's Ida, and welcome again. I get so much nourishment from attending the service. My soul feels comforted when I listen to the sermon, the music, and words of the members of the congregation and others. It restores my soul. As we prepare to end our service and enter into our afternoon, please join us in our chalice extinguishing words led by Karen and Troy.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts.
Here's a wave to everyone on our virtual and alluvial church campuses. We are one congregation, many places. Tim, I believe you have some reminders before our closing words.
Oh, Ida, how wise you are. I do, in fact, and let's some applause for Ida on our virtual campus. Very, very quick, because there is a congregational meeting about to be born. Exiting the sanctuary in a pandemic, we ask that our socially distanced side be allowed to leave first through those doors there. then the rest of us can just cut across and head that way. Normally, we would then sit down and have a long and luxurious coffee hour, getting to know each other in deep and personal ways. Today, we have coffee, but not a coffee hour. It will be a coffee minute. We're going to invite you to get your coffee. And if you are a member of the congregation who is going to participate in the congregational meeting and the voting that takes place, we invite you to come on back. In fact, we need you to come on back so we have a quorum. And if you aren't a member but are a cherished friend or someone who is just exploring for the first time, congregational meetings are amongst the most thrilling events in human history, and you are more than welcome to be with us. I would love to have you. I think that's it, except for our tradition. We do like to welcome folks who are with us for the first, second, or third time. We do it not to embarrass you. We are truly glad on a day as glorious as today, you chose to be with us for close to 90 minutes. And so, if this is your first, second, or third time, we invite you to rise for just a moment. We won't leave you standing alone for long. Welcome, 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 welcome. I invite the rest of the congregation, welcome, to rise with them for our closing words, followed by our sung benediction. If you're with a pod, feel free to join hands. If you are on your own, I invite you to place your hands over your hearts. Go now in peace. May you leave this place knowing you are good and knowing you are loved. Take your love from this place and share it with the world. Stay safe until we meet again. And may the longtime sun shine upon you. All love surround you, and that pure light within you guide your way on. Blessed be. Amen.
1, 2, 3, 4.
May we have safe passage, safe passage. May we have safe passage, safe passage on our way, safe passage on our way. Wanderers, safe passage on your way. Searcher, safe passage on your way. Sweet pilgrim, safe passage on our way. May we have safe passage, safe passage. May we have safe passage on our way.
Shalom and assalamu alaikum.